Hi, welcome back to Finally Revealed. In this episode, I want to talk about subleases. It applies to any type of a lease, but in general here, or specifically here, I want to refer to apartment leases for folks who are in college or who have taken a temporary job somewhere. The reason this is coming up, it's time for everybody to go back to school, and oftentimes college kids will, at some point in their career, enter into a lease for an apartment or a house. A few of these tips will help you make it smoother, and the reason that a sublease comes up at all is because the landlords are getting more and more savvy about making the leases longer. A lot of times, and from people that I've helped out, the lease is now for a 12-month period, for a full year. So even though the school term might only be 8 or 9 months, the landlord wants to lock you in because they don't want to have to worry about releasing the property for a short period of time over a break. For example, the summer break. They don't want to go to the expense of advertising and cleaning it up and getting someone else in there. So they're asking you, or requiring, if you want this property, you're going to sign a 12-month lease. So naturally, if you are living in a different place than your family is, and you plan to go home for the summer, you're going to want to make arrangements to recoup the money and not pay for something that you're not using. Alternatively, as you move forward in your education, or as I said, if this is a situation where you're working in another place and you want to return back to your family after the project is over, you want to, if you're moving on and you're higher, if it's a situation where you're an upperclassman and now you're working on summer internships, you don't want to be bogged down by a lease payment when you're not even going to be there. And maybe your roommates aren't going to be there either. So you want to arrange for someone to sublease it during the time that you're gone. The first thing that you need to look for is permission in the lease. And when you sign a lease, if this is something you're interested in, you should go back and make sure this is allowed already in the lease. And I just realized the first thing you need to do is make sure there is permission. And I have another video on getting this permission at the time that you sign the lease. So if you're at that stage, go back and watch that one and then come back and see us here. You want to make sure that the lease has permission for you to sublease it. If it's already built in, then the terms of a sublease and how you're going to get permission by the landlord and everything else is going to be set out. If there's nothing set out in the lease specifically, then you're going to need to ask if you can sublease the property and if there are any additional requirements. You don't want to just turn it over to someone and not do it with the proper protocol with the landlord, because if you're caught, you could be considered to have abandoned the property and they can call the whole thing off and call you in breach, because you've turned over their property to someone without their permission. So get the permission in the lease. If it's not already in the lease at the beginning, go to the landlord and document that by a writing that both of you sign, that you have the permission to sublease it for every summer if it's a multi-year lease, or for this particular summer if it's just 1 year. The next thing is the rent. How are you going to charge? Are you going to charge them, the person who's subletting from you, the same amount that you're paying? Again, look at your lease. Some landlords put a clause in there that yes, you can lease it. And guess what? If you lease it for more than what your obligation is to me, you don't get to keep that additional amount. The landlord gets that money. So check your lease. If that provision is there, it's going to be binding. If it's not there, that might be a different story for you. It might be an opportunity. So figure out what the lease is going to be with the subtenant, and you're going to want to put this in writing, because written contracts are required when it pertains to land, and a lease is relating to land. So you want to put that in there. Next thing to think about is a security deposit. You have a security deposit most likely with the landlord. Are you going to have your tenant, your subtenant, give you a security deposit? Remember, you are in charge of this tenancy, and just by, even with the landlord giving you permission to sublease it to someone else, doesn't take you off the hook. So if you go away You come back, you move back in, the person that you sublease it to moves out, and they've trashed the place, they've damaged it, you are on the hook for fixing that. So, and also, are they going to have pets? And are pets allowed overall? If they're not, then they shouldn't have a pet either, unless, again, you get permission from the landlord. So, what is going on in the property? Do you know these people very well? Do you need a security deposit to cover it? If so, collect it. And on that note, if you know in advance you want to have someone come in and sublease it, and you have somebody who's willing to do that, why don't you go ahead and enter into the sublease early and let them start paying you some of that rent in advance? It might help them with their cash flow, and it will definitely help you, so that then you're covered before you even move out. Then you have the money ready to go ahead and pay the landlord, which is another issue, whether you're going to pay the landlord direct that's another issue, whether you're going to have your subtenant pay the landlord direct or you're going to pay it. I would recommend you pay it, because that way you know it's getting done and there are not any surprises. The next thing is the term. Be clear about what the term is, when it's going to start, when it's going to end. You don't want to come back from your European trip or visiting your family or working at an internship and you have to kick somebody out. You want to know when it's going to start and when it's going to end, and that they are there when they're supposed to be there and taking care of the utilities and other things like that. And then finally, if things work out, great, but if they don't, you are the one who's going to have to sue them for the money or evict them. So check your people out, get permission from the landlord, have everything in writing, get things paid in advance if you can, and don't worry about it then. Okay? I hope this was helpful to you. If it was, give me a thumbs up. Share it with somebody who might need this. They might need some help. Or otherwise, if you like the video, subscribe to see our other videos and come back and see me next time. Thanks for watching.